Disclaimer! This project is just a concept, and I am weird.
Hello and welcome to the first entry in my new series of videos, where I talk and share a compilation of assets for a hypothetical Super Smash Bros. Game on the Nintendo DS family of systems. This is a game that would have come out in the year 2005. I plan to talk more about the project in general in a bigger video, but today I'd like to introduce the first character to this game, being everyone's favorite plumber, Mario. This incarnation of Mario would bear a photorealistic resemblance to his Melee and Brawl counterparts. I created his textures through photo bashing, and using a lot of existing assets from Brawl and random images I found on the internet. I received some feedback on the Reddit community, pointing out that the darker colors did not align too much with the DS's more saturated look, so I plan to alter them at a later date, but I felt like I needed to get a video out this weekend, so I apologize on that behalf. Now let's talk about some technicalities. My poly limit for every character is 600 tries. This model of Mario sits at a little under 500 tries, leaving room for any extra effect that he might emit, like the fireballs and the cape. For his silhouette, I grabbed inspiration from his Super Smash Bros. 64 artwork. I actually ended up doing the same for Link and plan to follow up on this for some of the other characters. Let's talk about attributes. Since Mario is slightly smaller than how he was in Melee, this would make him harder to hit, but his reach would of course be affected. His ground attacks would be more akin to Brawls rather than Melees. Most of his special moves would remain unchanged, with one sole exception. Like in Brawl, his down special would be changed, but not with Flood. Mario would instead adopt the ground pound. I chose this move because it's something that he tends to use in every 3D game. I know that naturally, Flood would be the more logical choice since at the time, Sunshine would have been the latest Super Mario game, not counting Super Mario 64 DS, but hardware limitations would not have allowed it. As for why I chose to mimic Brawl's choice in terms of replacing the Tornado, it's because I wanted to differentiate Mario more from Luigi. However, like in Brawl, his Tornado would now be his down aerial. And that is all I have to share today regarding Mario. Feel free to drop any suggestions and ask any questions that you may have, and I'll be happy to get back to you in the comments. If you want to keep up to date with this project, feel free to subscribe and follow me on social media. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Hello and welcome to the second entry in my Super Smash Bros. DS series. Today I have the honor of giving you this game's iteration of Link. As you can see, this version of Link pays homage to his Hero of the Wind or Toon Link attire. However, his facial and body structure are reminiscent of his Hero of Time counterpart, specifically Young Link. He is, however, very different from those characters. For one, it's a little hard to tell due to the style that I'm going for, but this version of Link is a little taller and older than Young Link, because I wanted to do a slight blend between that and his adult self. His color palette would be a little darker as well. The overall reason why I chose this design is because Wind Waker would have been the latest game at the time, but the idea of just having Toon Link replace Link entirely seemed a little too out of proportion, and I'm sure that many would agree. So I wanted to flow and decided to do something original, and I plan to do this for a lot of other characters with designs that tend to change, like Samus and Fox. I also took a bit of inspiration from his N64 artwork. Let's talk about technicalities. This model of Link sits at a little under 500 tries, minus the items. At most, with some items involved, he can go up to 600 tries. Now let me tell you, keeping Link under my set poly limit was the biggest challenge and a half when it came to modeling a character, but it worked out, and I still managed to leave room for any extra effect that he might emit. My good buddy Yacker, who knows stuff on Nintendo DS hardware, informed me that most DS games tend to limit the amount of bones on a character's armature to 31. Technically, you could go over this amount, but you'd be facing some major performance hits. This character rig for Link sits at exactly 31 bones. All of the items except his sword and shield are separate armatures. So, let's talk about attributes. This Link would function as a blend between his two counterparts in Melee. He'd have higher speed than adult Link, but his weaponry would pack less damage. However, he'd have greater control in maneuvering and be more efficient in aerial combat. This means that even though his attire is modeled after Toon Link, he does not work at all like that character. As you may tell, his arsenal is designed after the items he attained in Wind Waker. None of his special attacks really change. I thought about replacing his up special with the Kokiri leaf, but then I thought that people might not like it. I did end up modeling his hookshot and even created his pose for when he's using it, but it didn't end up looking as good, so I decided to take it out for the time being. I apologize on that behalf. For Link's taunt, I took inspiration from the side taunt that Toon Link has in Smash 4, except that his fairy will be modeled after Navi. I chose this taunt over the one from Melee because I wanted a little more interaction other than having him just brush his hair. And that is all I have to share about Link today. Thank you all so much for all of the great comments in last week's video. I promise to keep delivering these over time. I'll have some answers to some general questions in the description, but if there's anything else, feel free to drop it down below. And feel free to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss an update. For now, I'll see you all next time. Peace!
Hello, people of the world! It is I, your favorite self-proclaimed 3D modeler, presenting you with yet another entry in my Super Smash Bros. DS concept series. Today, I am happy to showcase my redesign for how Link would have looked like in the game. Like in the previous design, this Link bears the Toon Link attire. This time around, however, he's directly based on his portrayal in the Minish Cap, rather than in the Wind Waker. Lore-wise, he's the same hero of the Minish that we got to play as all of those years ago, only older. The choice to base him on his Minish Cap incarnation is a very small nod that makes a bundle of differences, starting with the sword. As you may notice, his sword is designed after the Force Sword. Why did I choose to go this route, you may ask? Well, after sitting in my bathtub for many hours and reflecting on my life choices, I remembered a video by my good buddy Hazard Zone, offering his take on the whole what if Super Smash Bros. Was on the DS idea. I'll link his video in the description if you're curious to see it. Spoiler warning, it's really good. One idea that I really liked was how the game would have paid homage to elements found throughout handheld games, since this would have been a handheld game itself, which I believe to be very fitting. And so, I decided to follow a similar notion, not only for this, but for all other assets and ideas that I plan to pitch later on. Its colors have a more, how you say, natural feel to them. Maybe those are not the best terms here, but in my defense, I do have a kindergarten level vocabulary. I try to implement better shading, but unfortunately, I'm not as proficient when it comes to texturing, though I'm working to get better at it. Link was the toughest character to make so far, since he has so many items. Unfortunately, I was unable to complete most of them for this video. It wouldn't really matter anyway, since I don't plan on animating those attacks, but if I ever find the time, I promise that I will try to do them later on. Let's talk about technicalities. Okay, here's where you might hate me. Because of the complexion in Link's design, I decided to up my poly limit for characters to 625. I know that's an oddly specific number, but it works with what I have planned in mind. The problem is that Link simply uses too many items, making it hard to make him look good and abide by the low poly limit at the same time, unless I make him fight barehanded. But yeah, it's a small change that breaks my previous rule, but Link, you know, he's a pretty important character, and he needs to look hip with the kids. Let's talk about attributes. Most of what I said in the previous video still holds true, but this time, I decided to add a little twist to his moveset. Literally, his up special can now become the Great Spin Attack. Gently tapping the buttons makes it work just like a regular spin attack. However, holding them for long before releasing them while on the ground causes Link to spin wildly, with more range and more damage, hitting any opponent in his path. The negative side to this is that it doesn't leave as much room for control, and may even leave the player vulnerable for a short time. And that is all I have to say about Link today. As usual, I thank you all so much for your continuous support. For the next video, I plan to cover the first set of bosses, being Master Hand and Crazy Hand. In between now and then, I'll be streaming and uploading shorts as usual, and updating the community along the way. There will be some answers to some common questions in the description, but if there's anything else, feel free to drop it down below. For now, farewell everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Peace!
Hello and welcome to the third entry in my Super Smash Bros. DS series. Today, I am happy to present the one and only Puyo Boy. Kirby's design is pretty simple, but nonetheless, I decided to make his overall proportions a little smaller this time around, in order to align with the style that I have going on for the whole game. His colors would be a little more orangey as well. This was just a result of a personal choice, because I tend to have a leniency towards warmer hues. But if I see that it becomes an issue later on, I'll be more than open to changing it back to align with his more classical look. So far, he's been the easiest character to model, due to the fact that he's just, you know, a ball. I did have to create 3 different meshes for when he's flying and using his swallow ability, but the area of difficulty really came down to the texturing portion. As Kirby is usually just made up of a few basic colors, without any proper lighting, his model would just look flat. So my solution was just to give him a small specular light that reflects upon his face, with a faint shadow emitting in the back for the illusion of depth. I'm thinking of reusing this method for other characters with basic colors, like Pikachu and Sonic, who I plan to cover in the following weeks. Let's talk about technicalities. If you all remember from my Mario video, I mentioned that the poly limit that I set for myself is 600 tries. This model of Kirby sits a little under 400 tries. While I usually look to use and make every try count, I saved an extra 100 tries for the items that he uses in his moveset, being his hammer and his final cutter. And I saved another 100 tries for the hats that he wears for his copy abilities, which I plan to showcase once I have more characters done. So let's talk about attributes. Like in the other games, Kirby would fall as one of the smallest characters, making him a little hard to land hits on. His smaller proportions this time around would only intensify that problem. To compensate for this issue, his defense stat would be drawn back, and knockback ratio will be higher as well. He'd also be a lot lighter than usual, making him even more floaty than before. Nevertheless, to the general Smash player, the difference would feel minimal. His taunt would stay the same as it was during the last 2 games. It's just too iconic and too adorably annoying to change. Speaking of which, for anyone who's curious about which button it would need to be pressed to exhibit the taunt action, I decided to have it be the select button for now, as that button doesn't really get used for anything else in most DS games. And that is all I have to say about Kirby today. As usual, thank you all so much for tuning in and taking the time to watch and comment on these videos. I'm very happy to see that this project gained so much traction in so little time. I'll have some answers to some general questions in the description, but if there's anything else, feel free to drop it down below. With that said, farewell everyone, and I'll catch you all next time. Peace! Hello and welcome to the 4th entry in my Super Smash Bros. DS series. Today I am happy to present the famous yellow rat that all the kids seem to be in love with. It's the 25th entry in the National Pokédex, Pikachu. As you may notice, Pikachu is portrayed a little slimmer than how it usually looks in other Smash games. This was done for the sake of aligning with the design that it had during the Gen 3 era, which also works with the style that I have going on for this game. Like Kirby, its colors are made a little warmer as well, mostly due to personal preference once again. Its textures were done with a similar process, but I took the liberty of adding a bit of personal touch and making them look a little less flat. Let's talk about technicalities. Pikachu's model sits at a little under 550 tries. I'm thinking that I can reduce it a little lower, but for now, I think that I can get away with it. I saved an extra 50 tries for the hats that it wears for its alternate costumes, which I am planning to implement in case you are wondering. What's good about Pikachu is that it doesn't hold any extra props in its moveset, so I didn't have to worry about that. The hardest part this time around came to the rigging process. The reason why I had a bit of difficulty there was because the model is so low poly that it causes some of the body parts like the limbs and the legs to not be consistent in volume. While I minimize this as much as possible, there are a few subtle problems. They are, for the most part, unnoticeable, but I'd like to keep perfecting it over time. Let's talk about attributes. Pikachu is one of the shortest fighters in the game. It is quick and agile, but does not pack much in strength and defense. To balance this, I decided to give Pikachu a better arsenal when it comes to long-range attacks. Its standard special would now be the Thunderbolt. Holding the B button would allow the player to direct a stream of electricity towards opponents. However, the Thunder Jolt could still be done by gently tapping the button. Its side special would also be changed to Iron Tail. This move slams foes and propels them downward. The longer one holds the buttons before releasing them makes the blow more impactful. Furthermore, the move also prepares Pikachu horizontally, acting as a side recovery. An attack that looks relatively similar to Skull Bash can still be performed with a forward smash. The reason why I decided to change its moveset so much is because I wanted Pikachu to align with how it was portrayed throughout the course of the Gen 3 anime, as I always assumed that it was originally designed to be based on Ash's Pikachu. Plus, I wanted to give it more of a diverse moveset type-wise. With this arsenal, Pikachu now has 2 electric type moves, 1 normal type move, and 1 steel type move. Perfectly balanced, like all things should be. But if the majority of the crowd feels unhappy with these changes, I'll be more than happy to revert them back to how they were. That is all I have to say about Pikachu. As always, I thank you all so much for your continued support. I'll be sharing some answers to some general questions in the description, but if there's anything else, feel free to let me know in the comments. In the meantime, you can look forward to Sonic's video next week. Anyway, farewell everyone, and I will see you all next time. Peace!
Hello, wonderful viewers, and welcome to the 5th entry in the Super Smash Bros. DS character series. Today, I shall be covering another famous, albeit blue rat, originally coined as the cooler version of Mario, the fastest thing alive, Sonic the Hedgehog. In this game, he'd be the very first newcomer revealed. He'd also be the very first third-party rep in the whole franchise. This version of Sonic is portrayed in the modern style that is a little closer to how he looked in the mid-2000s, with a degree of personal touch thrown into the mix to fit the style that I have going on for the game. Features like his head, gloves, and shoes are made a little bigger to give it more of a familiarized look, and his colors are a little more saturated as well. Making his textures was the hardest part in this whole process, and while I'm quite content with how he is now, I do plan on improving them as time goes on. All in all, he was definitely the most challenging character to make so far, but I had a lot of fun. Let's talk about technicalities. Sonic's base model has the highest poly count among the current cast of characters that I have done so far, sitting at a little under 600 tries, and leaving just a little bit of room for special effects. I admit that I got a little carried away with the detail, but in my defense, never mind, I don't have one. Besides the fact that he's a pretty important character for the game, of course. Some of his facial expressions would be distributed through separate meshes that would need to be switched out. Let's talk about attributes. Sonic is the fastest character in the game. In fact, he can run about 200 fast per hour, which according to the laws of physics, is pretty darn fast. In contrast to his previous, or I guess in this case, future iteration, Sonic would receive the biggest moveset alteration among all pre-existing characters. While his standard and down specials would remain as a homing attack and spin dash respectively, his side special would now be the boost from Sonic Rush. Using this move propels Sonic at an incredible speed, allowing him to phase through enemies. However, during this phase, he does not deal any damage. Technically, this game would have come out a few months before Sonic Rush, but I decided to include it in anyway as a kind of marketing campaign for that game. The second big moveset change would be his up special, which I decided to make into a completely original move called the Blue Twist. While using this move, Sonic dashes his feet in an upwards motion while twisting his body like a vortex, allowing him to propel himself upwards. Springs would still exist as an asset in the game. I'm thinking about either making it a new item, or just having it as a prop in the Sonic base stage. Point is that it wouldn't be completely eradicated. There'd be a number of other changes in his moveset, one of them being his down smash, which would now be the Sonic Eagle from Sonic Battle. I mostly want to emphasize ways to try and break away from the spin dash, while not eradicating it completely. That being said though, his moveset is not final, and is open to change. There's a lot more to cover regarding this, but I'd like to do that for another video, since, you know, there's a lot. Sonic would be advertised as one of the main attractions for the game. He'd be revealed within the first trailer, which would have premiered at E3 2004. This would be the very first crossover between Sega and Nintendo. For this game, I would have also liked him to be voiced by Ryan Drummond. I think that it'd be fun to have him come in one last time as the character. In that way, all 3 Sonic voice actors would have starred in the Smash game. As for his taunt, it'd be the same as the down taunt from Brawl, but instead of saying "you're too slow," he would say,
"Catch me if you can!"
That is all I have to say about Sonic the Hedgehog today. As always, thank you all so much for your continued support. I plan to continue this project for a very long time, and hope to keep delivering good content. In between the next character and now, I plan to release the first stage. But while you wait, I'll be releasing some animated content for the game and doing some live streams as well. In fact, I'm planning to live stream animating Sonic this weekend, so feel free to tune in for that. In the next few weeks, I also plan to cover items and other assets for the game, so look forward to that as well. But with that said, farewell everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Hello my good viewers, and welcome to yet another Super Smash Bros. DS character concept video. Today I am happy to present the one and only better rival to Mario than that pesky blue porcupine. Wario, the Almighty, appears as a newcomer in this hypothetical game. He'd be the most overpowered character by far. Okay fine, I'll make it fair. He'd hold back on purpose to make it balanced for the other challengers. There, is that better? Alright, cool. Let's talk about design. Given that the first WarioWare title would have come out during the years in between Melee and this game, Wario would wear his biker outfit. He would exist independently from the rest of the Mario cast. As such, he would count as a Wario series character. His costume would bear some alterations from the one in Brawl, and would be closer to the ones that were depicted in promotional art for the WarioWare games on the GBA. Oh, and don't worry, I do plan to show his classic costume in his future color swap video, but that'll be way later down the line. But while we're on that, I have to confess, you see, my original script for this video consisted of reasons as to why Wario is better than Mario, and could definitely beat him in any sport, and that he is simply losing on purpose because he bets against himself. But then after giving it a second look, I figured, nah, that is already public knowledge, and there's no need to reiterate it. Anyway, back to the design. If you notice, the logo that says hurry up is missing from the back of his jacket. This is because he actually didn't get that until Brawl. So to make it more unique, I decided not to have it here. I mostly emphasize my focus towards more saturated colors, in order to make him look more fun rather than natural like Brawl does, while maintaining a kind of realistic approach. Unfortunately, due to maxing out the poly limit, I was unable to provide Wario with the straps coming off his helmet. In that regard, it might look a little off, but like Thanos says, sometimes you gotta throw things off of a cliff to get what you want. Speaking of the poly limit, let's talk about technicalities. Wario's poly count sits at exactly 614 tries. The main area that made it so difficult to keep a low poly count is the fact that Wario's model has a mouth. As such, he's the first character in this roster that I had to provide with a jawbone, and I expect to follow this kind of treatment for future characters that I have planned. Because of the poly limit again, I was unable to provide him with a tongue, and had to fake it through a texture. I doubt that it would be much noticeable in an actual game, unless you're playing in FPS mode and get chomped on by him. Speaking of movesets, let's talk about attributes. Wario would count as a short heavyweight character. He would possess similar traits to the ones that he had in Brawl, and as expected, I had to sacrifice the bike, which is a good thing for me since I didn't have to model it. His side special would instead be his dash attack from the Wario Land series. Using this move allows Wario to ram through objects and people in his path. It would also be able to be used mid-air as a side recovery. While in this phase, it can still be hit from other angles. And with that, we conclude today's entry on Wario the Great. My original plan was to reveal Samus and Fox first. They were a little more complicated to make than I figured, so I'll probably do other characters before them, but I promise that they will come eventually. In the meantime, you can look forward to more content on the regular. But until then, I wish you all well. Bye-bye. Happy Halloween, my good viewers! Oh wait, we're still a few days away. Merry Christmas then! No wait, that's even worse. Happy regular day, people! And welcome to yet another character entry video. Today, I am happy to showcase a character that I and many people can relate to. It's the one and only Luigi Mario. Yes, that is his full legal name. For some reason, the presence of his brother seems to follow him everywhere, even in his surname. You know, I wouldn't blame Luigi if he ended up developing a sense of inferiority that manifested into the type of envy that would push him to do to Mario what Scar did to Mufasa. But I digress. Anyway, this is one that people have been asking for since the Mario video. He was actually planned to be revealed a lot later, but I couldn't hold it any longer. I needed to be free. However, the real reason as to why I decided to reveal him now is in the spirit of Halloween, because Luigi's Mansion and stuff. Also, he was an easy character to make, primarily because I used Mario as a base mesh. Luigi would have been an unlockable character in the game. As for the way that he'd be unlocked, well, I'm still trying to come up with that. But I think that one method could involve something like completing classic mode with Mario without using any continues. Simple and clean, like the song. And just like in later games, Luigi's design takes inspiration from the Mario and Luigi series, specifically Superstar Saga in this case, since it'd be the only game that would have been around at the time. His colors are more reminiscent of how he looks like in his sprite work, rather than in promotional art. I just found that this works better, especially with more saturated colors, which I am trying to go for. Though, I did not include the striped socks, as I personally didn't find that it looked too appealing. I also wanted to keep a few similarities to how he gets portrayed in the later Smash games. If anything, I could just throw in the socks as a bonus on the side. Let's talk about technicalities. Luigi's model sits at exactly 500 tries, just like Mario's. He stands a little taller than his brother, and is thinner as well, but of course, you already knew that. I'd also like to think that in this game, his voice lines would directly mimic his actual voice, rather than just be a higher pitched tone of Mario's. I've never been a fan of that, even as a kid, but I understand that back then, there wasn't really any source material to grab from. I think that in this case, the voice work could have either been grabbed from Super Mario 64 DS, or be completely and newly recorded. Let's discuss attributes. Luigi would be considered a semi-clone of Mario, with a similar bone structure and proportions. Most of his moves would be more similar to how they were portrayed in Brawl rather than in Melee. His special moves would remain the same as well, except for one big key difference. Luigi would now have Force Lightning, or more specifically, be able to manifest electricity as his neutral special. A power derived directly from Superstar Saga. It would work just like the fireballs, except, you know, it's electricity. And yes, that is the Kamehameha pose. His down special would remain as the Cyclone, and like in Brawl, it would provide Luigi with a slight upward boost. His general traits from Brawl also remain. He'd be slightly slower and more slippery than Mario, but be better in aerial combat. Both he and Mario would now swing their mallets from Superstar Saga as their down smashes. I felt like keeping their original side smashes was for the better, hence why I decided to make the use of their mallets as part of their down smashes instead. And that is all I have to say about Luigi today. As always, I thank you all so much for your constant support. If you haven't read my recent post, I put up a schedule for how I plan to handle future content in the next few weeks, so feel free to take a look at it if you want to get an idea on what's coming next. Feel free to subscribe, and with that, I see you all next time. Bye-bye. Howdy ho, my fellow viewers, and welcome to yet another video in my Super Smash Bros. ES concept series. Today, I'm happy to hand over the first few bosses for this hypothetical game. In my head, that sounded a lot funnier. As expected, Master Hand would return as the final boss of Classic Mode. He would be fought on what would be this game's version of Final Destination. Since this is the first boss video, I'd like to talk about how I believe that they'd be handled in this game. Bosses would be encountered throughout many different modes. They would be unlocked and be able to be fought individually in a boss battle mode like in Brawl, after the player has defeated them for the first time. Every boss in the game will be taken from various franchises. While I have a number of ideas on who I'd like them to be, I do understand that realistically, the game would not have allowed for so many assets. So at the moment, I'm capping the number at about 10. And if everything goes well, I'd love to model them all later on, to show what they would have looked like, and because this is fun for me. Let's talk about attributes. The health that Master Hand starts with would vary across the 5 difficulties, ranging from 150 to 350 health points. Besides a few combat attributes, there'd be no real changes to his moveset. So for the design, I mainly based it on his appearance in Smash 64, as I wanted to exaggerate on the roundedness, since my vision for this hypothetical game would involve a degree of tuniness. It is meant to be fun after all. Let's talk about technicalities. Master Hand's model sits at exactly 864 polys. The fact that the game would be designed with the pretense of having the players fight the bosses individually allows for more freedom in how much detail each of their models can have, which is good because normally bosses will be bigger than the player's character themselves. I'm thinking that I can have them go up to 2,000 polys if I need to. Like in Melee and onwards, Master Hand would be accompanied by his crazy nephew, Crazy Hand. Crazy Hand, like me, is crazy. Like his uncle, his moveset wouldn't change much from previous installments. He would be encountered by completing Classic Mode in less than 5 minutes on normal difficulties or higher. I know that seems short, but since this would be a friendlier game, I figured that the amount of stages in Classic Mode could be downscaled to 8 instead of the usual 10. So to encounter him, you'd still need to be fast, but it's not like you would need to break the sound barrier or anything. Beating Classic Mode would award the player of their respective character trophy, and defeating Master Hand and Crazy Hand would also unlock them in boss battle mode. And that is all I have to say about the handy boys today. The next big video that I plan to put out will involve the next big character that I have been working on for this concept. In the meantime, you can look forward to more streams and shorts. With that, farewell everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Peace. Hey yo people, and welcome to a quick video where I show off different color swaps for Luigi's brother. Beginning with his standard outfit, this one will be based on well, himself, or more specifically, his more modern appearances. His first alternate costume would be based on his classic overalls from promotional art for the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES, and may also be partially based on his appearance as Jumpman back in Donkey Kong. This suit would function as his blue team outfit. His next costume may be based on his portrayal in the Japanese and European box arts for the game Wrecking Crew, but could also allude to another character, Jinbei, not from One Piece but from Mole Mania, another game by Miyamoto. This suit would function as his green team outfit. This next one is based on Wario, aka Handsomer Mario. Note that the appearance of an alternate costume based on the character does not deconfirm the character for this hypothetical game in any way, and nor am I confirming him either. This last alternate costume based on Fire Mario would be unlockable. I always thought that it'd be fun if Sakurai decided to implement secret costumes within different Smash games, you know, as a fun bonus. Since I'm partially basing this concept on my vision, I figured, what the heck. Anyway, those are all the costumes for today. Gonna try to get a character reveal out soon, and I'll announce it a day or two before I do, to give people the heads up. Anyway, until then, I wish you all well. Bye-bye. Hello, my audience. We meet again, here in the darkest corners of this video sharing platform. If you haven't read by the title, you may be asking yourselves, what twisted and deranged content do I have prepared for today? Well, I'm glad you asked. Here are a new set of color swaps, this time for Link. The first color swap being his red costume is based on Spider-Man. Alright, fine, I'll get cereal. Since the Link in this game is based on his incarnation from the Minish Cap and wields the Four Sword, I thought that it would be fun if his alternate costumes were directly based on the other colored Links from the Four Swords games, which in a way are designed to follow up on each other as part of the same saga. So in this regard, his blue color swap would be based on Blue Link. But it wouldn't be too uncanny to say that this along with the red costume also take inspiration from the blue and red males from A Link to the Past respectively. Meanwhile, Purple Link is directly based on Thanos. Okay, fine. The point is that all of these different colored Links are a play on the multiplayer aspect of the Four Swords games, which brings us to the last color swap, being Dark Link. Dark Link would be an unlockable outfit in the game. In order to obtain him as a costume, the player would need to defeat him in an event match. Dark Link Link made an appearance as a recurring enemy in Four Swords Adventures, but in that game, he was referred to as Shadow Link. Still, the notion is the same, I guess. And those are all of the color swaps for Link today. I'll be a little busy in the next few weeks, but I'll continue to make efforts in delivering content on the regular. If all goes well, you can expect another big video out next week. Anyway, I'll see you all en la próxima. Bye bye! Hello wonderful viewers, and welcome to another video in my hypothetical Super Smash Bros. DS series. Today, I am happy to present the very first stage for this concept, being its very own iteration of Battlefield. This stage would have been revealed alongside the game's first trailer, which would have premiered at E3 2004. In case you're not aware, every Smash game starting from Melee features a base stage called Battlefield that consists of 3 small platforms atop a larger platform of grabbable ledges on the sides. They tend to vary in designs. I personally like the 3DS version. The beauty is, of course, in the Sharingan of the beholder. However, what is recurring is a fantasy forestry architectural theme that was first featured in Brawl. For my version, I decided to follow a similar premise. So in this imaginary universe, Super Smash Bros. DS would have been the first game to feature this theme instead of Brawl. Let's talk about technicalities. At the time of this video, the poly limit that I set for myself when it comes to the stages is 650 polys, plus another 50 polys for the backgrounds, totaling 700 polys. While I don't have a background currently set up, I do plan on integrating one in the future once I found a background artist. With a background mesh, I estimate the total poly count to sit somewhere around 620. Let's talk about design choices. I grabbed a lot of inspiration from Greek and Roman architecture. Formulating this stage was actually quite tricky since I'm not the best at environment design and composition. What I did do though was make it a point to highlight the important areas by emitting a type of neon glow for the platform. Sakurai actually highlights a similar premise in this series of making games, but I've yet to tune into those. I didn't do the reading. Nevertheless, I'm still quite happy on how it turned out, and I plan to improve it over time. And that is all I have to say about Battlefield today. In the next week, I plan to upload a redesign of Link's character. I should have it done by then. In the meantime, feel free to tune into the shorts as well as my animation streams. Until then, farewell everyone, and I'll see you all next time. Peace!